How do we think the Deandre Ayton thing ends?
I don't know. I feel like it's in a lot of ways tied to the Durant stuff. I'd be surprised if he played for the Suns. I just feel like the options of teams that people drew to Aiden are running out a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a weird saga, honestly. Played so well. I mean, they were in the NBA Finals a year ago and looking great, and he was one of the reasons why.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's like, yeah, he's never going to play for this team ever again. There's just been so many weird things coming out of Phoenix over the last few months that just have to have you feeling a little uneasy that the guy that you picked number 1 wants out for his second deal is concerning. And then the whole we don't care about the draft stuff is weird. I don't know how it's going to end, but as a Phoenix Suns fan, you just have to hope. What's the best trade that you can make and get something like equal value back for Ayton? I think it's tough. It's a tough thing to do. Like, I hope they don't just trade for another functional big man. Like, don't just like fill the hole of Deandre Ayton with that, because he's just too valuable in my opinion. I don't think we've seen the best version of Deandre Ayton yet, and you're already ready to let him go, or he's already ready to go. It's just like, man, I don't know what's going to happen with him.
I don't either. And it's weird because DeAndre Ayton is like really good at basketball.
Yeah, really good, and
So
good specifically for that team too.
here is your complete list of players according to Basketball Reference that have averaged at least 17 points and 10 rebounds per game in a season before they turned 23 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Or in their 23-year-old season or younger. 17 points, 10 rebounds, shot 60% from the field. It's Dwight Howard and it's DeAndre Ayton. Like, those are your two, and that is it. That is like crazy to me.
It's crazy.
Like
Also, I feel like DeAndre has left a lot of stuff offensively on the table, like stuff that I feel like he can get better. Like, he's not. I don't know, man. It's just so weird.
And then, like, if you reduce it to 55%, because look, like 60% high, he's Chris Paul feeding him the ball, right? It's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It's Buck Williams, who was like a multi-time All-Star early in his career in the 1980s. It's 4 years of Shaquille O'Neal. It's 3 years of Dwight Howard. It's 2 years of Charles Barkley. And then it's DeAndre Ayton and John Collins, who, by the way, for some reason, the Hawks are trying to move right now for some ungodly reason. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get why there isn't a bigger market for DeAndre, because you can't point, like with John Collins, you can point, oh yeah, like he's kind of a tweener defensively. You don't know what to do with him. Yep. There's kind of a lot going on there. I think he's gotten good enough at the 4 defensively. He's good enough at like sliding his feet in space now and being aware rotationally to where he's not a liability, but he's not a plus defender.
Yeah.
DeAndre is a plus defender now.
Yep.
Like, he's a plus defender at the center position. He can guard out in space. He's, you know, he falls asleep sometimes at the basket, but he's pretty good as a help side defender now. He's not elite at it by any stretch. That's the thing that's holding his game back, if anything. But he's really good. He's 23 years old and he averaged 17 and 10 and shot 63% from the field. Like, what are we doing here? He has potential to shoot it. Like, he can defend.
Well, and if you care about life beyond Chris Paul, like, you have to. He and Booker and Bridges, like, that's great. Like, why are we not doing everything we can to make this guy happy?
Yeah,
it's just it is such a strange situation to me, because what can you get back for Ayton that's going to satisfy you? That's going to make you feel like you did well.
See, like, I've been trying to figure out, is there like an Indiana Miles Turner, DeAndre Ayton like swap kind of thing? So here's the thing. Like, look, Chris Paul can play with any kind of big.
Yeah.
Chris Paul is particularly good at feeding rim runners. Mm-hmm. Miles Turner as good as he is, and he's a phenomenal floor spacer for a big, great rim protector, better defensive player overall than DeAndre Ayton is. Not a rim runner, right? Like pick and pop guy, not like a crazy downhill athlete
Mhm.
necessarily. But I've still been trying to figure out like, is there a Miles Turner and a first round pick deal there? But if I'm Indiana, wouldn't I just rather extend Miles Turner? Like I'd try to at least.
Then have I don't know, I'd rather have Ayton. If that kind of deal is available, like, give me DeAndre Ayton. I'd rather just
Maybe.
have the better player, and then you can reunite him with Jalen Smith, you know?
Yeah. And you know what? Like you then have Tyrese Halliburton, you have Ben Mathurin, you have DeAndre Ayton, you have
Yeah.
Chris Duarte. Like that's your core four moving forward.
Mhm.
That's pretty good. Like that's a really, really good core that you feel like you can build around. You're still probably not going to be great next year, but you're probably competitive because Tyrese is good and DeAndre is good.
Mhm.
So maybe you're right. Like maybe I would do that. You'd have to throw in like some other stuff, obviously, but like it's
If I'm Phoenix, there's no way I'm doing that, though. Like, that just doesn't feel adequate. That doesn't feel like that really gets me anywhere. Maybe
yeah,
they're a little bit better next year, but man, if I'm Phoenix, I'm thinking. I mean, Chris Paul's 37. Like, how much longer? I just can't. To me, I can't throw guys like Miles Turner or whoever at this team trying to make it better today.
yeah,
Like when you have an option that keeps you good today and good in 5 years, and you're giving that away so that you can maybe be slightly better for 1 year. Like Aiden could be a lot better than Miles Turner next year. He's 23, you know?
yeah.
By the time he's 25, it could be like, "Man, I cannot believe that they traded Miles Turner for DeAndre Ayton. He's averaging 20, 12, and 2 blocks a game, and he's just crushing it for the Pacers."
The other one that I've been trying to figure out is could this be like a place for if Toronto decides they don't want to put Scotty Barnes in a Kevin Durant deal?
Yeah.
Um, maybe DeAndre makes sense there.
Yeah.
Like trying to figure out like, okay, we sign and trade Gary Trent or something like that. We sign and trade, you know, Precious and Gary Trent for DeAndre Ayton or
Yeah.
something like that. And that again, that makes Phoenix worse. I don't like that
Uh,
deal. Like I think it's a dumbass idea.
yeah.
But if they're just like set on fuck it, we don't want DeAndre anymore for some reason.
It's just it's such a wild situation. I feel like I have incomplete information on what's happening with DeAndre and Phoenix.
Look, I think that like look, I've talked to people and I still just don't. I think it comes down to ownership at the end of the day. Like, I mean, that doesn't come like don't. Robert Sarver for a long time has been a very cheap owner,
Yeah.
and I think that if this was a owner that was willing to consistently pay the tax and has proven that over a long period of time, they would have extended DeAndre at
Yeah.
the deadline or like at the extension deadline back in October.
Mhm.
Coming off of a fucking finals run where he played better than Nikola Jokic for a full series.
Mhm.
And that's the other thing about it with DeAndre. That's the crazier thing. Like outside of this Dallas series where he was not very good, right? And they got beat.
Yeah, yeah.
He's been playoff proven. Like he's been good. This is not a situation where you have to play him off,
He's
play him
23.
off the court.
He's 23. Like 23-year-olds have bad playoff series.
Yeah.
That happens every single year. And to act like, "Oh, okay, well, he's just cooked." Like, no, he hasn't. He's still approaching his prime. He's still not even close to his prime. It's just it's a weird time to trade a guy who was the number one pick, who has performed well, like you said, and helped you get to the NBA Finals. And I don't know, they act to me, they just act a little bit like they're I don't know, they're not a team that has just been in the playoffs year in, year out, and a franchise
Yeah.
that's just had, like, such stability. Like, just sign DeAndre, make him happy, stabilize your franchise for a little bit longer before you start making wild decisions. If DeAndre Ayton in a year is unhappy, you can trade him then. Like,
And
it's be a tradable
that's the other thing. People are acting like, oh yeah, he's just like a limited big. He's just like a rim runner and all this stuff, and you don't want to pay those guys the max. To an extent, I get it, and I am generally hesitant about paying bigs.
Yeah.
I also think that people are drastically underrating how hard it is to find all of the things that DeAndre Ayton can do in one player.
Mm-hmm.
He is a really high level scorer. Like he just averaged 17 points per game on, the best team in the NBA during the regular season. 17 points, 10 rebounds. He's probably one of, I don't know, what do you want to say, the 10 best rebounders in the NBA,
Yeah.
something like that. Averaged 11 and a half point or rebounds as a sophomore. Like he's a phenomenal rebounder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay shot blocker, good shot blocker, good, solid overall defender. I think he is big enough and has figured out how to use his frame well enough in drop coverage to where he's pretty good rim protector. He's also a switchable defender that you can keep on the court in a playoff series. He has potential to shoot. He's made, looking at the numbers here, 75% of his free throws over the course of his career. Took a three basically once every 4 games and made 37% of them this year. Like non-zero chance that by the time DeAndre Ayton's 26, he's shooting threes.
Yeah.
Like I get that he's limited as a playmaker, like as a passer. That stuff can come for bigs. Like it tends to come a little bit later, I think, than what people would tend to think. But if that's like your one hold up here, because the rest of it's pretty complete.
Yeah.
It's harder to find those guys than what people think in a package that is 7 foot tall, 250 pounds, doesn't get beasted by other true centers. Like that's the difference between him and like Bam Adebayo, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Bam is for me like one of the 3 best defenders in the NBA and is a better overall offensive player than DeAndre as well, because he can pass and he can do some similar things, playing with the ball in his hands. Different offensive player, but effective.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm Atlanta, I'm doing anything I can to get him.
That's a good one. That's a great one. Yeah. But like Bam, to go back to Bam real quick, like Bam, like the difference is Bam is 6'9" and can get beasted by Joel Embiid occasionally, right? Like DeAndre, that's not really going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. If I was Atlanta, I would try and figure it out, especially if you can do it while keeping DeAndre Hunter. The problem with that is, I mean, look, maybe they reached out and Phoenix has more interest in a first round pick than Kevin Huerter. But
yeah.
Like Kevin Huerter on some level, you would think is like a pretty good asset for DeAndre Ayton, like to start with in a trade.
Yeah.
But they also don't have picks to move now. So like, what is the Atlanta move? I don't know what it is.
Yeah. I mean, if you're Phoenix, I think you want players, obviously, because you don't value picks, because you don't value the draft. So you just want players, right?
That's
so
a good point.
Maybe it's Collins and, I mean, if it was Collins and Okongwu, like if that's your package, like that's pretty interesting. And to me, if you're getting DeAndre Ayton, like I love Okongwu, you don't play those two together.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And so I don't hate that for Phoenix, because I do think that Okongwu is going to become a really good player. So if you just have to trade DeAndre Ayton, like that kind of package, I think makes sense. You get 2 good players to fill your rotation, one that you can kind of grow into a bigger role. And then if you're Atlanta, you have this core of Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, DeAndre Ayton. I like that quite a bit.
DeAndre Hunter as well.
DeAndre Hunter there, who is actually a great fit next to DeAndre Ayton.
Yep.
That to me, what the Hawks have needed to do is raise the ceiling of their team, and they've just I feel like they've raised the floor a little bit too much. And now that's a ceiling move for me. A team that can grow together. Like I like that quite a bit for them. If they could pull off a move for Ayton, I think they're a team that I think should.
So I'm trying to figure out how close they are to like the luxury tax and to like the apron.
Yeah.
I think they actually could do something similar to that. Um, they're far, I believe. Don't quote me on this. This is how I get in trouble, like just talking before I know certain. Um, I believe that they are far enough away from the apron to where they can sign and trade in DeAndre. And if you're set on getting rid of DeAndre Ayton, John Collins, and maybe you keep Onyeka and you move Clint Capella to like a different situation,
Yeah.
but like John Collins and what you could do John Collins, AJ Griffin. I don't know. I'm trying not to include Okongwu. Okongwu is probably the guy that makes the most sense from a salary
Yeah.
perspective to
Yeah.
put in. But if I was Atlanta, I wouldn't really want to do it. Then again, if you add 3 teams, it can get a little bit funkier where you can like send guys multiple different directions if you do this with Capella.
Mhm.
So maybe that is it. Maybe it's, you send Clint to a third team if there's a team that wants Clint Capella. You lost one with Minnesota, but maybe you could send him to Utah, and Utah's trying to stay competitive with Donovan Mitchell, maybe. So maybe
Yeah.
they give up one of the like
That could-
shittier first round picks they have. And then I don't know. I'm like trying to like come up with a bunch of random shit off the top of my head, and it's
But
hard.
don't you think that it'd be tough to develop a Kongwu into what he's kind of meant to be with a guy that's going to play 35 minutes a game in his position? Like, I just
Yeah.
don't know how you do it. I know you wouldn't want to give up that talent. I mean, you just took him in the top 10 in 2020.
Yeah.
I get it. But there's only, when you bring in a max level center, there's only so many ways for it to work.
Yeah. I think it's more for me that like I also am a big John Collins fan, and I think that I'd
Mm.
rather just have Collins and a Kongwu as
Okay.
opposed to Aiton.
Yeah.
More because I just again like I actually really like both those guys.
Yeah.
Um, but like if I could, I mean, you may solve like a problem with John Collins, like because I can't imagine John Collins being like a problem in a locker room. But like,
It's another weird one. It's like,
yeah,
oh,
I can't figure that out.
what would you want next to Trae Young? Like, oh, a 4 that's a high flyer but can also shoot threes, and it is a weird situation too, where it's been a foregone conclusion for a while that he's just going to get traded, and I don't know why.
Yeah, he's good at basketball.
He's
Like John
24
Collins is really
years old.
good.
Yeah. Yeah, these are both baffling situations to me that I can't quite like put my finger on why are these happening? Like they both seem to fit quite well with the teams that they're playing with.
Yeah, and like I think part of it is maybe that Onyeka, like they think that Onyeka is like a real rim runner. Like you'd almost rather move, and like I'm gonna bring Miles Turner in again. Like
Mhm.
I would love to do like maybe it's Onyeka Kongwu for Miles Turner and then Clint Capella out to a third team or something like that. And then you try to extend Miles Turner, and then you keep John Collins as your rim runner, and then you have Miles Turner in the corner, and you get Miles Turner's rim protection with his floor spacing, and then you get full John Collins rim running to the basket all the time. And or picking and popping and like playing 5 out. Like something like that is interesting for me from a fit perspective.
Yeah. That to me just feels like another floor raiser and not necessarily a ceiling raiser for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't know. Like you tell me that the Hawks could be, you could do Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, Miles Turner.
Yeah.
That's a
good
fun
team.
team.
Good
That's a
team.
really fun team.
The top of the East is so good though now. Like you've got to
Yeah, it is.
you've got to make a pretty ballsy move if you're
Yeah.
Atlanta, or you just have to slow play it a little bit more, which I feel like they pushed the button too fast. Where like maybe they could have had a better draft pick, in a year, last season. But I don't know. I don't love what
Yeah.
they've done, getting all these players that kind of raise their floor a little bit too fast. I think you got to let it marinate a little bit.
DeAndre does fit the age timeline for Trae and DeJounte though. and DeAndre
Yeah.
Hunter, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
good.
Yeah, he does.
And
Yeah.
they're all mature enough to where like they're past the youth of it all.
Mhm.
Which is interesting. Yeah, no. If I was Atlanta, I think I agree with you. I'd go for DeAndre. But yeah, the fact that DeAndre Ayton has struggled this much to get like $30 million a year is kind of baffling to me, especially given the way that the money is supposed to rise in the next couple of years due to TV contracts.
Yeah, I was gonna say this max contract is not gonna look like a max in 3 years.
Yeah, it's a mini max. Like it's a 25% max. It's
Yeah, these
bizarre.
yes, these are the times that you get guys on max contracts and you feel very good about it.
Yes. Pay the money. Like Robert Sarver, for the love of God, just pay the money. Like,
We just don't own the team anymore. I mean, I'm
well,
sure, and I know that Suns fans have been beating that drum for however long he's owned the team, but
yeah.
it's that you hate that to be the reason why like teams don't make it or that
Yeah.
players don't get signed is because of ownership. Like those are the worst situations in the NBA.
And maybe it's not. Maybe James Jones just doesn't have faith in DeAndre anymore, or maybe like the core pieces have been like, we don't love DeAndre anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know that. Like I'm speculating on potential other reasons. It could be based on you know the
I,
Phoenix Suns
I would almost
not
rather
signing
that.
DeAndre Ayton.
Right. I'd almost rather it be that situation where it's like personality wise, this isn't going to work.
It's
That
just too baffling to me.
I know.
Otherwise,
Yes. Agreed.
like, and I don't. But like DeAndre, it seems like it's just like a dude that likes to hang out and play video games and like seems like a pretty like good dude. So
Yeah.
like I don't know. Like
No.
maybe he's like ready to move into a bigger role. I get that, but you're gonna
But
be able to
Chris
move into
Paul's
a
just
bigger
around
role
the
when
corner for you because
yeah.
like this Chris Paul team's almost like it's not going to last forever. He's
No.
37.